Lesson 20. Hard and soft consonants in Russian. Palatalization. Now, in English, as I said in the last lesson, we have some consonants, such as the letter G, which can have a hard pronunciation and a soft pronunciation. For example, the letter G can sound like a G or like a J. So when it's G, we call that a hard pronunciation, a hard G. When it's J, we call it a soft G. We have that same terminology for Russian. We have sounds that we call hard sounds and soft sounds, but Lucille, it doesn't really work out the same way in Russian as it does in English, does it?
No, it doesn't. When you're talking about the English hard G and soft G, those are two totally different sounds, G and J. Your mouth is doing different things to produce those sounds. In Russian, the sounds are going to be much closer to each other. There's a definite distinct difference between hard and soft, but it's basically variations of the same letter formation in the mouth.
So what is the nature of that difference? In Russian, what makes the difference between a letter that is pronounced hard and soft? What's the nature of that difference?
It's all about where the sound is produced in the mouth. Typically, with the soft sounds, the tongue is going to be raised higher in the mouth towards the palate, which is why we call it palatalization. And this is something that takes a lot of listening to a native speaker do in order to get the idea, and just practicing, because a lot of them are not sounds that we necessarily use in spoken English.
And we have a couple of examples here. Sergey, we have food and then feud.
Mm-hmm.
And when we say the word feud in English, our tongue rises and goes up kind of to the roof of the mouth. Is that a way to explain palatalization in Russian?
Yeah, I think if you try to observe what's happening in your mouth as you pronounce certain words, you'd be able to notice those differences. So for when you say the word food, you're kind of making a little bit more, almost like an O shape inside your mouth. There's kind of a little bit of space. Food. And then when you say feud, I could feel that space kind of closing as if you're like squishing the O a little bit and maybe like the tongue moving closer to the roof of my mouth. Feud, to create that sound. I think like another example would be if you take the name of the letter T, that would be a soft palatalization of that sound, right? T. And if you notice when you say T or steep, your tongue is kind of touching the roof of the mouth when you say that T. And then if you say something like tip instead, or top, it's just the tip of the tongue that's touching the front of the teeth and then immediately removing itself. Tip. But T is more like more of the tongue is flat against the roof. That's what I've noticed in myself when I say the different hard versus soft consonants.
So Lucille, if you wanted to make a broad generalization for our beginning listeners about the difference between a hard Russian consonant and a soft Russian consonant, how could you put that in very general terms?
In general terms, the palatalized consonants will be formed typically with the tongue raised higher in the mouth, and maybe sometimes we say a little bit more of a forward motion in the mouth. And with hard consonants, the tongue will be lowered and not producing in the same way. So it will take just attention to this detail as you move forward with Russian, as you learn not just letters, but also letter combinations, to discern that difference and do lots of listening and trying to recreate what you hear.
So quick review as we finish up this lesson. In Russian, when we talk about consonant sounds, the terms hard and soft refer to palatalization of letters and sounds, not like in English when we have two different sounds for a particular consonant. The terminology is the same, but it has different meanings in the way we use those terms with reference to Russian sounds.